Hi everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. We're gonna wait for a bit here. We do understand that everyone's got really busy schedules. Some folks may have some back-to-backs that may be tricky to get out of, but we're gonna hang tight here for just a minute or two and just make sure that we have ample time for folks to be able to filter in and to join us. We've got a lot of exciting stuff to go over today, and we want to make sure that we have as many people joining us and discussing them. I'm going to go ahead and I'll get our title slide up. Ranjit and Ariana, glad to see you guys. Thank you guys for joining today.
Oh,
Good to be
excited to
here.
be here.
All right, let me make sure that I'm doing this correctly. All right, awesome. All right, we're a minute in. So for those folks who are punctual, I want to make sure that we respect your time as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm Harvey Raniola. I'm the head of marketing here at Quid. We're really happy that you're here to join us today for our webinar, Decisions Not Dashboards, where we're going to be showing off some of our latest innovations. I do want to remind folks that we have a couple of events that we're going to be participating in coming up. There's one that's actually taking place today. So if you happen to be in New York, and if you're attending Retail Rebels, or if you have any colleagues who may be attending that event, it's a 2-day event. We are there today. We're at booth 9. We'd love it if you stop by. We do have goodies. We have a raffle as well. And obviously, we'd love to talk to you about the outcomes that you want to achieve, you or your colleagues. So if you are planning on going, if you know someone who's going to be there, just know that we are at booth 9. And then our founder, Bob Goodson, he will actually be part of a lecture series. This one's going to be hosted at the University of East Anglia this upcoming November. I believe that the in-person lecture is actually sold out, but you do have the opportunity to join virtually. So if you'd like to do so, drop by our events page and register through that link, and you should be able to save yourself a spot for the virtual event. We have more of these coming up as well, so just keep an eye out on our events page, and we'd love to have you at these upcoming events. So we have a really simple agenda today. I did want to be able to briefly introduce our speakers. For the folks who are not familiar with Quid, I'd also like to talk a little bit more about what we do here at Quid. And obviously, over the last couple of months, we've made this shift into really focusing on helping folks to achieve their strategic outcomes. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well. And then from there, we get to the fun stuff. I'll hand it off to our speakers to talk about our newest Q agents. And then we have our Q&A saved for the end of our session. I do want to remind folks that we do have a Q&A widget that is available to you throughout the course of the webinar. If you have any questions that are relevant to a point that's being discussed, please feel free to pop in your question. We'll try our best to get to it, and if not, we'll make sure to address them at the end of our session today. Just realize that I'm not fully full screen, so let me expand that. Here we go. All right, our speakers today, you may have caught me introducing them or speaking to them briefly at the start of the webinar, but it's Ranjit Bhatia. He's our SVP of Product Management here at Quid. And also joining him is Ariana Bastianini, our Senior Platform Product Manager. Like I was alluding to earlier, they're both very busy people creating all these exciting things that we're actually going to be talking about today. So really excited to have them on board. There are so many interesting and really fun developments that I know they've been working on. I want to make sure that for the folks who are joining one of our webinars for the first time, that you also know a little bit more about Quid before I hand it off to them. So if you're not familiar with Quid, we have been doing this for a really long time. And what am I referring to? I'm talking about this. It's really helping folks to understand their consumers, the target audience that they're going after, their markets, and understanding the different external forces that may be impacting the way that they need to do business. And we've been doing this for more than 20 years, working with people just like you. And over the last couple of months, and really the last couple of years, we've been building up to this point where we're now creating models to help folks to understand what these external signals are. And not just that, but our emphasis over the last year has really been in allowing folks to be able to speak to engage with, and not just that, to anticipate how their market may be shifting and really getting folks away from this idea that they need to rely on really deep, complex dashboards and interpreting that information to getting them over the line and helping them to understand how to take action on those dashboards and the underlying data. And this is part of the reason that we have this ethos and what you may have seen on our homepage around decisions, not dashboards. Everyone loves a good dashboard, but more often than not, the question being asked is, so what? What do we do with this information? We help folks to be able to understand what to do with that information and help them to achieve their strategic outcomes. And what are these outcomes? Well, we have a number of different outcomes that we help folks to be able to achieve. Here's just a sampling of a few of them, and really just to illustrate the point in terms of the different types of outcomes we help folks to achieve. We also work across a number of different industries, and as a result of this, we have the opportunity to work with a number of really great customers who are leading brands globally. I just blended two words together there. Really at the core of what we do is what we like to call quid science. And really, this is where a lot of our time and investment has gone into over the last couple of years in really honing and refining the way that we're able to develop these models with our customers. We want these models to be central to the way that the customers that we work with, the way that they do business. And the reason that we think so is because we want to ensure that folks are able to easily share and that we're enabling them to democratize insights internally. We want to ensure that the folks who are in product are understanding where the white space opportunities are, but also being able to share that information quickly with their marketing teams and their sales teams and their more strategic teams for all of them to be able to benefit and all to be in lockstep with each other in terms of how they translate that into benefiting their business. And the way that we're able to do this is we're able to cast an extremely wide net over more than 2 petabytes of data. We work with our customers really to be able to not just understand what their strategic outcomes are, but also to figure out what the right components are to ensure that the insights that we're delivering to them, the recommendations that we make, are relevant to the outcomes that they want to achieve. We want to make sure that what we're doing isn't just one size fits all, it's one size fits one. And that's the customers that we're working with. And these models, really, what's really exciting about them is that these essentially allow our customers to be able to speak to their markets and to be able to understand exactly how to take action on them. And one of the ways that we're facilitating this is through these Quid agents. And the way that we have them represented in this visual on the right side are these cute little robots around our innermost circle here. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll hand it off to Ranjit to lead the upcoming part of our webinar.
All right, thank you, Harvey. So yeah, great overview. I think what as a company Quid does and kind of the broader way, like kind of at a high level, how we do it. So I want to just kind of double click on what just Harvey kind of mentioned. I want to zoom in, like how this all actually connects together in a day to day, like the work people do with Quid or the work people do inside Quid. So Harvey, if you go to the next slide. So what we have seen across every customer, right, whether it's a global brand, a consultancy, an agency, or a research team, is that the depth of work and the mode with which they work shifts. It's different teams, different kinds of data sets. And there are moments when I think you're doing kind of a quick exploration, ideation, and then there are moments when you have to do actually a lot of repeatable, repetitive, structured tasks, a lot of these analytical workflows, and then there are times when you have to do the deep custom research that blends data, people, and humans together to deliver on that deep dive that you have to do custom for your stakeholders. Now, all of these modes lived in silos before, right? Different tools, different data environments, different teams even. People who are doing the ideation and strategy might be different from people who are doing actually the deep dives. And this is where Quid Terminal actually brings it all together. Like all these different modes, they live in one connected system. Now, at the top of the spectrum, if you see, is Ask You. That's our conversational interface for exploration. It's for anyone, not just the analyst, can access our data models in natural language. You just go in to brainstorm, test hypotheses, discover, validate. It is like choose your own adventure, right? You can talk to the data straight away. Now, the next thing is where this there's a much more mature kind of workflows, more structured, recurring questions, standard analysis, repetitive tasks. Like these are the what we call the dishwashing laundry kind of tasks, right? Things that need to get done and they take time. There are steps that you have to take. So this is where Q agents step in. They automate the heavy lifting, running the analytical workflows, synthesizing outputs. But key is consistency, right? Like you want to run the same thing with the same process every time. So that's where Q agents come in. Now all of that, like there's still some work. I think that demands deep expertise, right? Like this is where the analysis become more contextual, more consultative, that you have to actually know your stakeholders, more client specific. This is where our outcome engineering comes in, which is essentially combining the human judgment, our human skill, our custom models, our specialized tools, which are not exposed through terminal, to bring in that like where Quid, rather than just becoming a terminal or interface into this data, becomes your trusted partner, right? Like we are augmenting you. Like so that's the three different layers that we serve through AskQ, Q agents, and the outcome engineering. So they're all it's not three disconnected things now. It's just one intelligent system that spans. They're built on top of a unified model, a unified data sets, and it's one foundation that's petabytes of data along with the Quid science that kind of Harvey mentioned before. Now, if you go to the next one, I do want to talk about what differentiates Quid, like this underlying system, what's different about it, the Quid science versus the mainstream LLMs. Now, if you look at all the mainstream LLMs, I would say they're pretty good. But they're generalists, right? They're brilliant at reasoning, but they don't know our world, right? We have spent 20 years working with this data. They have not. So we know the consumer behavior, market data, brand signals, all the subtle contextual thing that goes that the analysts have dealt with every day. So we know that. So Quid is very opposite of that, I would say. We are the specialist. If they're the generalists, we are the specialists. And we have built it's a purpose built for consumer and market intelligence. So we're designed to go deep when we need to go deep in this kind of space and with this data. Now, what we can do things that general models can't do. So we are combining your premium data and the public data. We have the history of data, so we can actually provide you that longitudinal view going from what happened, how has the narrative shifted over many years or last month. So you can see how it evolves. In addition, we are baked in these multi-step analytics workflow. This is the deep expertise that we have over the 20 years that we want to now bake it into these Q agents that uh, if you want to do those things in the mainstream LLMs, you have to chain these prompts, right? Like, and like you put in a one word and the prompt, the answer completely changes. So how do you get that consistency? So we do that pretty well. And the other is we deliver outputs that are executive ready, right? They have got quant, they're traceable. We give you the citations, we give you actually real counts. So one of the big differentiation is we have the data to count, but essentially, what mainstream LLMs do is they will read a count on a blog post and say, like, this is what the count is. So there's a very different thing from counting versus kind of just reciting a count that they have seen. So that's the other difference is when you have access to the data that we can analyze. So that really differentiates us from the mainstream LLM. So again, in short, I think what others are still trying to fine-tune those models to become an analyst, we have purpose built from ground up to leverage these models to a system that actually is for kind of get to that consumer and market intelligence. Now, I think what I want to do is hand it over to Rihanna. I think who's going to take you kind of do a double click on that middle layer that we talked about, the Q agents, which is what we want to talk about today, like the repetitive, tedious dishwasher and the laundry kind of task that you have to do every day. So over to you, Rihanna.
Thank you, Ranjit. Um, so yeah, agents. I feel like that's a term we're hearing a lot right now. And really, to me, what that is, if we think about that laundry example, it's the kind of things that there's lots of steps that we have to follow. We have to do it in the right way, or not, your clothes are going to end up pink, right? You need to make sure you put the right things in, you set it to the right temperature, you put it in the right product, and then you're going to get the output that you want. That's what we're specializing in when we're creating agents. We know we're breaking down what it is that you need to do on a repetitive time scale, and we're going to orchestrate that for you. So let me give you an example of what some of that orchestration might actually look like. So if you click to the next slide. Well, before I show you the behind the scenes of what that orchestration might look like, let me tell you a little bit more. Actually, most of this we're going to be looking at live. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're getting inputs from you, our end user. We're taking those inputs to make sure that the analytical processes that we're going to be running on your behalf are specific, are custom to exactly what you want to know about. And then we do behind the scenes a whole lot of orchestration to make sure that we're doing each of those steps precisely. And then we come out with an output for you. Now, that output can be one that is, like Renji mentioned, exec ready, and you can share the brief as is. Or maybe the output is your starting point, and you're just doing a bit of a pitch, and you just need to get a lay of the land, and you need to know what's going on. Your outputs can be used in multiple different ways, and your agents can be built to create specific outputs for whatever it is that you're focusing on. And now if we click to the next one, yay, now you see the behind the scenes. So this is an example of what that orchestration is looking like. So here on the screen, you're seeing this kind of flowing through all these different nodes, all these different steps. Within each of these nodes, a lot of different things are happening. We're looking at different data sets. We're looking at, we're processing those data sets in specific ways, custom to whatever the project is that you're working on. We're prompting those. We're leveraging AI where it makes sense to leverage AI. We're using the cutting edge models that will serve best for the specific purpose we're looking at. It might be a model that's built in-house at Quid, or we might be leveraging OpenAI or Claude, whatever is going to be the absolute best to make sure that we get you what you need in the most efficient way. That's what we're going to be orchestrating here. What you see on this screen is ultimately, it's kind of like a person who's working, an analyst who's working behind the scenes to do a report for you, do all your research for you, and compose it together so that now you can digest it and take those actions, get to the outcomes that you're actually interested in. So now let me show you what that actually looks like for you, for the end user. You won't be looking at, nodes going everywhere and things like that. There's no need for that. So let me take over the screen sharing, and I'm going to show you our terminal. Make sure I actually press share. Okay, can you see my screen now? Great. So this is the terminal. As Renji and Harvey both discussed, there's a lot that you can do in this terminal. That's pick your own adventure. That happens up here in this ask section. But you also have this Q agent section. Q agents, this is just a small taste of what we've already produced. And what's so exciting about this is that we're producing new agents, weekly. This is something where the cadence of delivery is so dynamic and so agile based on the needs that we discover from working with our customers. So today I want to give you a taste kind of the breadth of agents. This is not exhaustive by any means, but I want to give you a couple examples of how I can use these agents to help me get to my outcomes faster. So we're going to use the context of holidays. Holidays are coming up soon, so that's going to be our focus for whatever we look at today. So let's say I'm working on a pitch, and I need to get a sense of not just holidays, but toys in the holidays and how that's working. And I really don't know that much about it. So I just need a starting point. I'm going to come over here to my industry overview agents. And in this agent, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to tell it what it is I'm interested in. I want to know about children's toys. And I'm going to hit submit. Now, this agent is going to go and work in the background for me. And then I'm going to get an alert via email and also within the terminal that my brief is ready for me to analyze. These agents, it might change depending on the complexity of the agent, but on average, the agents take between 10 and 15 minutes to run. So we're not going to wait here for the full 15 minutes. I ran one right before this, so I'll just show you what the output of that was. So I opened up my industry report on children's toys, and this is where I can start getting a sense of what's happening. This is my get smart quick, right? This is a lot of information. Children's toys for the holidays, that's a big topic. How do I find out what's going on? Okay, let me start looking through. Oh, okay, some of the trends that are happening. Oh, challenges, threats, risks. This is where I can start seeing things like, oh, parents actually really are frustrated by mess, by persistent mess. And that makes you have strict rules in your household. Okay, that's a nugget. That's something I might be pulling out later on. And I can keep going through this to start getting the sense of what it is that where it is I should start focusing. If I'm coming together and I'm going to put a pitch for a new client, or I have to create a report for my boss, I need to give the breadth, I need to give the context of my space, and then I need to be able to narrow down into what I specifically am going to take action on. So I can look through this, I can understand some of these, challenges and risks, opportunities and growth areas. So, something that like jumps out at me when I'm is this kind of the in-store hunts, that idea of being able to interact. So it's the buying of the gift is not, it's kind of driving off of what made Labubu so popular, right? The excitement of the toy is not just the toy itself. It's the I have to find it and then I don't know what I'm going to get and then what is it going to be, etc. So, okay, another thing, and I'm seeing Squishmallows mentioned here as kind of one of these brands that's really interesting for these in-store haunts. Um, okay, what are some of my growth drivers? Okay, again, nostalgia, and I'm seeing Squishmallows again. Okay, let me find out a little bit more. I'm actually going to open up my Ask queue on this brief, and I'm going to ask it some questions. Now, because I know we're going to have to zoom through lots of agents, I've just asked a couple questions ahead of time. But pretty much, what toys are driving nostalgia? So I see that Squishmallows is driving nostalgia, but what else? Is it unique to that? Is it there are more toys? And now I can start finding out more. Okay, no, there's actually these other brands that have also come up in our industry view of kind of nostalgia driving toys. Now, I again want to be able to take an action from this. I don't want to just have an insight. Oh, okay, cool. Squishmallows are nice. People like them. I want to do something with it. So I can also ask my agent to tell me, well, what should I actually put in my social media post to highlight this nostalgia? So I've seen the nostalgia is important. I'm understanding what toys are. Okay, maybe I have that in my, I have nostalgic toys in my inventory, and now I want to highlight those on social media. I can use this agent as my partner to ideate, to figure out, oh, does this make sense with the research that I've surfaced? Are these ideas that I can actually take forward and do something with? Now, when I do this, I'm actually like, okay, I kind of have an inkling that I need to do a deeper dive. I want to know more about Squishmallows. That's actually kind of what's jumped out at me most from this. So I'm going to go back to my terminal homepage and I'm going to open up another one of my agents. Now I don't really know anything about Squishmallows at all. Before today, before seeing this report, I genuinely had never heard of the word Squishmallows. So I want to know more about Squishmallows. So maybe that's just I'm not cool or I'm not cool with the kids, whatever it might be. But I'm going to put in Squishmallows and I'm going to give it my category. The reason why I want to give it a category in addition to just the company name is because I want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're giving you exactly what you want to know about. So if there were a Squishmallow that was a bouncy, I don't know, or a rubber material, and I put in a category rubber materials, we would focus it. We would find the squishmallow that's relevant to that. A better example might be Apple. If I put in fruits or I put in tech brands, that maybe makes a little more sense than Squishmallow, the rubber brands. But anyway, so I'll put in my company and my category and I'll hit submit. Similar to before, I'm not going to wait. We're not going to wait for the 10-15 minutes for this report to be done. I just ran one right before this call. So let's open up that report on Squishmallows. Now, similar to what we saw before, this is giving me kind of the lay of the land. Now, what I think is really important for everybody to know is that agents can be built to fit whatever customizations you're most interested in. Are you in a situation where you really only value content that comes from Baby Center, from that forum, because you're so focused on parents that have young children and you only want to know content from that one, from these parenting forums? Cool. We can set it to be just that. Or do you again just want to do a broad kind of view? It's not doesn't need to be pretty. This is still just your ideation, your quick research. Great. This is where this kind of agent is going to start giving you your overview. It's going to start telling me, okay, these are the products and services. You see, we're bringing in content from a large variety of sources, both social as well as blogs, as well as news. It kind of runs the gamut. And you're bringing in trade communications as well. You really have a large breadth of data that we're looking at here. This is again where we can start understanding, okay, how they're positioning themselves. What's the messaging that they're using? Who owns it? Have there been rebranding things? How is it distributed? How do they make money? I'm not going to spend time like going and reading through all of these sections, because what I want to get to is how powerful it is to be able to start with a concept that I know nothing about. And within a couple clicks and 15 minutes, I get my starting reports. I know where to drive it. I know what information is going to help me understand what it is I need to go further. I can even look at what the satisfaction of employees is that work for this brand. And here you see we're bringing in Glassdoor data, just to give you another example of that breadth of sources. So this is, I hope you see kind of an example of how I can take something really broad like an industry, and then I can narrow it down to a company, but I'm still doing a more generalized search, right? I'm looking at employee satisfaction as well as revenue models. It's broad, it's generalized. So what happens when I actually want to be hyper specific? Let's look at another example, like our food product concepts. So we work with a CPG company where one of the biggest challenges that they have is that they have this massive gamut of products, but it's boring to just be like, talk about each product separately. You want to tie it to a theme. You want to give it a concept. You want to make sure that you have a story that you can tell with each of those products. And so what's really valuable for them is to understand, for whatever kind of concept kind of has popped into their heads, what are ways that people are talking about those things? What are connections between products that maybe they hadn't thought of before? And that's where we've created a highly specialized agent that is only focused on food product concepts. So in this, I could do things like add in Mediterranean cuisine, Mexican food. That could be an example of a concept. Or let's say that we want to do, I don't know, creative Christmas food, back on the holiday theme. Again, I could hit that and start running this agent. This agent is actually highly, highly specialized. So this one takes a little bit longer than 15 minutes. This will probably take between 20 and 30 minutes, because the data sources that we're pulling from are so unique to just looking at food concepts and the way people talk about eating. So again, I'm going to show you one I had created right before this webinar. And here, again, this was built off of the needs that we found when we worked closely with the CPG. This means, and the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to understand how powerful these agents are because we can build them totally customized to what you need. What are the types of outputs that are going to make this most valuable for you every time you run it? So in this case, the CPG really needed to know about consumption drivers. That was a really important thing. What is driving people to, eat this concept, consume this concept? We're going to be bringing, as per usual, verbatims, examples of those narratives. And then we're also going to be able to give the other kind of rounding out of this concept. Again, how do I take action on this? How do I make this something that I can actually create a campaign for? I need to know more than just the consumption driver. I need to understand what are some cultural influences that are impacting it. What are occasions? I mean, here it's a little more straightforward because I said Christmas food, but you can imagine where when we talk about Mediterranean cuisine, occasions might actually give us a very different insight. This is an area that I love. It's the unmet consumer needs. It's white space. This is really an area where the CPG highlighted to us that they struggled the most in finding this information. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out, how do we prompt this? What data sets do we look at to make sure that we're pulling out the white space based on whatever concept they want to know more information about? Similarly, what are some of the friction points that are going to stop adoption? What are emerging ingredients and preparations? And I hope you don't feel like I'm just giving you a long list of things. I just want to illustrate how nuanced these agents can be and how specific this can be to whatever concept, project, way of working, analytical process that you want to focus in on. So that's an example of how I can get super specialized. I know that I need this. I need to know these 6 things about it every time. And I also need to be able to ideate because of blah. I can set that up and make my highly specialized agent that's just giving me that information. Now, what about when I want to understand a wider breadth of maybe sources? I mentioned before, maybe your focus is just on forums, and that could be something that we set one of our agents to just look at. But the other thing is that Quid has so much data that goes beyond social media. And that's one of the things that we really want to surface for you in agents and make it easier for you to access and for you to action on those other types of data sets. So an example of that is our earnings call categorical analysis agent. This agent is leveraging transcripts from the earnings calls from the top 1,000 Fortune companies. And we've grouped all of those transcripts into categories so that, for instance, I could pick, let's say, retail, and then again, submit the agents. And now I'm going to get back a report on, let's see, which one I just ran this morning. Here you can see I have lots of reports that I've been running. So nope, this is the one we were just looking at. I had it all beautifully mapped out, and then somebody else ran a report while I was talking and messed up my flow, of course.
Wasn't me.
So here's my, yeah. Here's my earnings call analysis. So here I'm looking at the retail industry. Again, I'm focusing on one specific category. Remember that my data set here has nothing to do with social media. These are specifically focused on what the CFO and treasurer of the Tractor Supply Company said in the earnings call, what the director of investor relations for Chewy discussed. And this is what's letting us understand from a really complicated subject area, right? Earnings calls for an entire category. What are some of the trends that are standing out? What's some of what are some of the sector-wide risks and tailwinds that we need to be paying attention to? What about forward-looking commentary? What companies are being cautious? What companies are being optimistic? What specifically is driving that caution and optimism? Or what specific companies should I actually do a deep dive into? Because for a number of reasons that, again, we could you could go with what Quid decides are the important reasons why we're going to spotlight a company, or you could have a custom version of this agent that only pulls out companies, only spotlights companies that meet specific criteria that you consider the most important thing. So that customization is truly powerful. And so I can look and see, find out more about each of these ones, how they're performing, strategic priorities, challenges, major announcements, etc. What I love about these briefs is that not only are they giving me that view of a data set like earnings calls, but I can also be pulling in, for instance, high tier media. So again, thinking about toys, I'm able to look at a report that's just looking at from high tier media, what are the trends in the last week of conversation? So this is what has been reported on about toys. And I can focus this in. I could have it be just about wooden toys, or I could have it be about electronic toys. And I have that flexibility to run this agent twice and see that side-by-side analysis between the two. Now, I know I've been zooming through agents, and it's because I want to give you that sense of kind of the multitude of things that we can create. The last one that I really want to spend a little bit more time on is one that I think is really exciting for our monitor and our discovery users. One of the things that I so often hear from a monitor user is, I kind of just want to know what's going on. Like, I have this topic, it's great, it's beautiful, I've cleaned it, I know it's exactly what my data set is. So I have my monitor topic ID or my saved analysis ID, and I want to know, what are the themes of conversation? In other words, if you're someone who's used Discover before, I want to know, what are the clusters of, I want to see that network map for my topic. And I don't want to spend any time cleaning my network. I want to just get my answer. I want to know what matters. What are the themes that are important to me? So here's where we can use our theme discovery agents. Like I mentioned, this one is specifically built for monitor and discover users. We have other versions of this agent which do not require that specialist knowledge of, your topic ID. But I think this is a really great example of how this is a true extension of what you've been doing with Quid over the years. All that work, all that incredible time that you spent curating your data sets, that's not lost. We're able to leverage that, and that is the underpinning behind what you see in Terminal. So for instance, here, I will take a topic that I have that is, this is a holiday toys topic. I'll pick my start date. Let's say I want to do the last, and my end date, I want to do the last week of data. And if I want, I could focus it in. So I could again say wooden toys, electronic toys, not messy, clean toys, something like that. That's up to me if I want to add in a focus or not. And again, I would hit submit, and the agent goes and runs. Now, if I pull up this discovered themes brief, what's really exciting about this is that not only do I get my core metrics, this is what you would expect to see from Monitor when you pull up your holiday toys topic. You want to know not only what's the volume, but how has that changed? And this is going to look at the time frame that I've put in compared to that exact time frame in the previous period. So if I looked at 7 days, it's going to look at the previous 7 days to give me if that fluctuation in volume. It's going to intelligently pick up photos that match the content of your post. I highlight that because we can have agents that are entirely based on photos, entirely based on the visual imagery around a concept. That is one of the things I so often hear from customers when they need, especially when they're in that ideation stage, they want to understand, well, what is the visual story being told? We have an agent that can help you do that. Now, what I think is so cool is that not only are we pulling out what are those core subtopics, so what are the clusters of conversation within my really broad topic of holiday toys in the last week, and everything you can click out always gets original verbatims. We also have actionable insights. These actionable insights And all of the actionable insights that you see in any of these reports are going to be tied to whatever I've put as my priority outcome in terminal. So in terminal, that homepage, just a reminder, in case you weren't on our last webinar, we set priority outcomes, and this is what I care about most. What is it the thing that I want to focus on most? What is it that I need to know most importantly? We use this information when we're creating your actionable insights so that it's always catered and customed to you or to the client that you're running it on behalf of. But my favorite part of this is not just that, which I love. I think that's great. I think it's one of the things that has always been a pain point for me when I was used to be running a lot of like day-to-day analyses on monitor topics. But this is what really makes me happy is not only do I get to see in text what is the summary of a story of a conversation, I also get to see what the Discover network is. So I can visually see this, this story that was told to me in text here. Here's the visualization of that story. Here's where I understand how this conversation is grouped into clusters. So in case you haven't seen a Discover network before, each of these dots, each of these nodes is a verbatim. It's an insight that we've found on a post. And each of these clusters is a grouping of similar concepts that have been discussed. Now, these networks are clustered based on insights. So that means that we're able to understand the nuance of conversation. If one post talks about 5 different insights, we're not going to just highlight the one insight of that post and make it one node. We're instead going to make it 5 nodes, one for each insight, and we're going to classify each of those insights into whatever their clusters, their groupings are. For anybody who's been using Discover over the years, this I hope is music to your ears, because this means that you're getting beautiful, curated, clean networks that are precise because we're looking at the cluster at the insight level. And I don't have to spend time cleaning. I don't have to spend time renaming things because of how we've redeveloped our ability to cluster on insights. So I think I spoke all the time and did not leave a lot of extra time, and I apologize, but I get really excited about these agents and what they're able to do. There is so much more, but I'm going to stop there so that we can take any questions that have arisen.
Ariana, that was part of the reason that we invited you to be one of the presenters during this webinar, is being able to convey and exude excitement in a lot of the developments and innovations. So thank you for walking us through that. I do have a couple of questions here from the audience. I do recognize that we're running up on time, so we'll chat through a couple of these. So the first one is from Riley. Um, do I have to use Quid Terminal to be able to access these workflows?
That's a great question. At the moment, our agents are available through Terminal, but we will be offering these agents through other places. So you will in the future be able to leverage these through your own systems. We'll be using MCP to make sure that we can integrate into a variety of different platforms. So really, I think the sky's the limit there. At the moment, this is the main place where you can access them, but you're not limited to it.
Awesome. All right, next question here. Just going to go rapid fire. It's from Anya. The question is it possible to make the Q agents run on a recurring basis?
So yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so you can through the self-service mode through terminal, that's on the roadmap, but any custom Q agents that we build, we have full flexibility to trigger them on some event or schedule them. So it's very flexible what we can build. Through self-service, yes, it is right now on demand, but that's on the roadmap.
Awesome. Thanks, Ranjit. All right, we're gonna do one more question here. This one is from Mateo. The question is, are these briefs created by Q agents editable?
So
You want
that's
to take that,
number
Renji?
one of a roadmap item. I mean, this is we've got a lot of demand for that. I think as we speak, we're working through that. So just a matter of time.
Awesome. I know that there are a couple of other unanswered questions here. We do encourage you. We'll make sure that if you are an existing Quid customer, we'll hand them off to your respective account managers. If you are not a Quid customer yet, we'd love to get you connected with someone on our team to be able to talk through some of the outcomes that you're looking to achieve and how Quid can help you out with it. I want to be able to thank Ranjit and Ariana again for taking time out of the days to present today. Really appreciate you walking us through all of that and the insights in our new innovations. We also wanted to just thank you all for joining us today. We ask that you please keep an eye out on our events page. We've got a lot more coming up that we're working on finalizing. But until our next webinar, we'd like to thank you all again, and we'll see you again soon.
Right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.